Welcome to the Elixir Sessions, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness and innovation. Today, we sit down with David Avocado Wolfe, the raw foodie.
Let me show you the front side. Check this out. Check out the avocado right here.
Oh, that's cool.
It's my Indiana Jones hat. I'm kind of an Indiana Jones kind of character. Archaeological sites, massive crazy adventures inside of unique archaeological monuments, megalithic ruins, that kind of thing. That's just a fun little side hobby.
How did you get into that?
This is my feeling, is that these archetypes that are presented to us when we're children somehow manifest later in life. And somehow I never was really like, oh, the Indiana Jones archetype, but that kind of became my life for whatever reason. So I have to believe that that's probably what seeded it.
Like, where have you been? What's the most crazy place?
Oh, I've been. My favorite places are in Peru. The megalithic sites of Sacsayhuaman, Peru.
Puku, Pinku.
Machu Picchu is my favorite place in the world.
The other one, Pucapante.
Pumapunku.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. Teotihuacan. I was there early on. I was there about 20 years ago and photographed all the elongated skulls in that region. That's amazing. It's not Teotihuacan, it's Tiwanaku.
Okay,
there it is. That's why I got that confused. Tiwanaku. And I've been to numerous sites. Chavin de Huantar in Peru, a pilgrimage site, an incredible monument, one of the most incredible temples on earth, and a pilgrimage site, according to conventional archaeology, that spans back about 7,000 years. So that's pretty interesting because it's very, very old. I'm sure it's older than that, but.
Well, I spent a lot of time in India, and they found a Shiva that's 20,000 years old is what they've dated it, and actually they don't even know it's old.
Yeah.
So 20,000 years. It's like don't even have dates on this stuff. It's so old, and you look at it, and so I think about what happened in the Palisades fire, and it's like there's a whole neighborhood just went. So like these civilizations that could have been here, just like the Palisades disappeared in a nanosecond, so could all these other things. It just kind of really makes you realize it's this cycle of
the great cycles, the yugas, as the Vedic civilization said.
Yeah,
I have my own theories about it. I think that these megalithic ruins are from they're pre-flood, from Atlantean times. And that was the civilization the 10,000-year epic that preceded our epic. And in our time, the first civilization that really came up after the flood was the Vedic, and then the Persian, and then the Egyptian Chaldean, and then the Greco-Roman, and then the Anglo-Germanic, according to Rudolf Steiner, which is our time now. And then the next one, according to Steiner, is the Russian, and then the seventh period, which is probably 1,000 years or 2,000 years in the future, is the American.
Wow.
We often think of our time as the American, but Rudolf Steiner would say it's the Anglo-Germanic, because a lot of our founding documents, for example, came from the Anglo-Germanic root.
Right. Yeah.
And so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, thank you, David, for joining us today here at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles. I'm Nigel Williams, creator of Elixir, an online community where we curate uncensored conscious content from real practitioners just like yourself. And we call it unconventional wellness. And what it is things you can't talk to your doctor because they don't understand, they haven't been trained. You can't talk to your family because they wouldn't understand what you got. And you tell your friends, they'd laugh at you. So people are out there right now looking for answers of things, don't really know where to go for certain things. And this can be categories like death, which is a pretty big subject. But you don't know who to talk to about that. Who would you talk to? You can tell somebody you're sad, but who do you talk to? You can talk, the physical things, or sexual wellness, or psychedelics, or list goes on and on and on. PTSD, it's like we if people are broken, they don't know who to go to. So we're really focusing on that, and it's also part of our journey as well. As an organization, we're finding out about these things as we go, and we start out thinking something's kind of crazy, and then we're kind of like, it's like what's his name, Steve will do it, or that guy. You kind of do things, and then you find out. So one of the things we did a documentary on frequencies being played into psychedelics, so that the mushrooms grow in a certain frequency, and it gives off different things. So it's like,
what a great subject. How interesting.
So we started out with an interview just like this. We ended up doing a whole doc and just screened it in Hollywood last week. So it's really fascinating. That's the other thing too. It's like just fascinating. People have got all these answers.
But one of the things that really our civilization has lost is we think we're the first and only that we're here, that somehow, we were just elevator door open, we pop out and there we are. And there wasn't like 10,000 of us previously. And so I think we're losing some of that knowledge that's coming through. So that's a big area for us too, is like, how do we transfer that knowledge, the ancient knowledge? So modern wisdom and ancient knowledge together. So if we can start with you just introducing...
you just said ancient, old, brand new. That's one of my favorites.
Oh.
What does that mean to you?
Ancient, old, brand new, if we have a problem in the present moment, we just reach back to the ancient old, and then suddenly it's brand new. Here it is. So the best solutions come from the most ancient.
So I had a message on my last journey, and it was in the jungles of Costa Rica last year, and it said, ask for help. We're not going to let you do any of these things. You've got to ask for help. So I'm like, hey, shit, because men don't do that, right? We don't ask. So that's my thing. I'm like asking everybody for help now, because that was what I was told to do by the ancient. It was literally like these ancient people telling me. So if you could give us an introduction to yourself and a little bit about what you do for our audience.
Okay, great. My name is David Avocado Wolfe. I grew up in Seaside Heights, New Jersey originally. That's where I was born. In the mid-'70s, we started coming to San Diego, California, and actually all over California. And my uncle and my cousins lived in California. And then I planted my first avocado tree in 1978 in San Diego. And then come around 1980, my family wanted to move out of the Jersey Shore, and we moved to Southern California. So I grew up in kind of a Southern California surf culture. Both my parents are medical doctors, so I was always oriented to that world, but I didn't agree with anything they were doing. Everything that was going on in that world to me just made no sense. And in fact, I always believed it actually made things worse, just from direct experience as a kid. So I was a black sheep of the family in that way. And I think your audience is probably the black sheeps of the family all collected. That's kind of who we are. And I just struck out in a different way. And then I was going to UC Santa Barbara. I was there for 5 years. I did 3 degrees, mechanical engineering, environmental engineering, and political science. And then when I graduated there, I took a year off, and then I was going to go to University of San Diego Law School. In between that summer, actually, right before starting law school, I had a vision. And it wasn't a psychedelic-induced vision. It was just a vision one night in my old room, in my old family house. And as Jack Kerouac says, people who don't listen to a vision are damn fools. And I had to listen to it. It was like everything made sense. This is how you're going to go forward. So I realized what I was supposed to do, and it kind of all came together. So I went to my best friend at the time, my cousin, and we were all hanging out together, and I said, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, we're in. I was like, great. Okay, cool. So right away, that was within a week things had started. And that eventually became, this happened in August of 1994. By November of 1994, I was already in front of 100 people giving a lecture on health and what we were doing and avocados and all kinds of things. And this cascaded into thousands of events all over the world, to incredible audiences, and just an incredible life that I've lived with all the incredible people, places, and experiences. Eventually, when the pandemic happened, that sat me down so I could actually be in one place for once, because I actually traveled for 26 straight years. I was never in one place, not even my homes, for more than 4 weeks in 26 years. And so I finally was in one place for an entire year, and I was able to kind of collect my thoughts and kind of re-envision what the next phase was going to be, which is going to be more traveling and more events.
I know you've traveled all around the world, met so many different people. What do you think people are searching for today more than ever?
They're searching for reconnection to the sacred.
Do you mind if you just kind of repeat the question?
Yeah. What people are really searching for in the deepest level of their being is a reconnection to the sacred. And that's why psychedelics are so powerful, because they can cure people in an instant of materialism. They may not cure people of their psychological disorders and whatever else is going on, but they will definitely have that effect. They can stop the materialism right there on the spot, where people realize that they're in a world that's filled with spirit and soul and always has been. That to me is an amazing thing. That's what happened to me. I mean, for sure, that's when I look back on my life, I'm like, oh yeah, the reason why I know it's filled to the brim with spirit and soul is because of the psychedelics I took when I was young. And the experiences with ayahuasca and the experiences with peyote and wachuma and those great things. Those are incredible medicines, for the world. They're not always the cure for what the person needs, but they can create the platform where the healing can occur.
What do you think we need to do to maintain the integrity of those medicines? I mean, we messed up in the 70s, big time, I think, or maybe it was government regulation or whatever it was, but it wasn't well administered at that time.
I think that the answer is in that question. It's the way it's administered and who's administering it. I've met people who are the fake shamans, and I met the real ones. And a real one in the real place, you can't beat that. That's as good as it gets. So that's my recommendation, is seek out an authentic experience. If you're going to do it, like people are like, okay, I'm ready to do ayahuasca. You waited your whole life. Pick out the right spot. I've got some recommendations, but I'll send you here or there if you ask me. But make sure, you go to the right place and have a real authentic experience, because you don't want to have a bad experience, and you don't want it to be some like fake thing that's happening in the Hollywood Hills that, somebody, I just heard a story like this. Somebody's collecting like $500 or $1,000 a person, and it's just completely phony.
What about the integration part of it? I think that's the part that a lot of people don't do. So, bringing it back into your life, because that's the work.
That's the work. What is showing you? Like, it's showing you a door or many doors on how to get to certain places that already had been within yourself. And I think that's why it's here now. It's kind of accelerating our growth. It might have taken lifetimes to see that one door, but here in one psychedelic experience, you see it, or several of them. But is that the work? No, the work is integrating it in. Like, then what did you learn? What does that mean? How does that affect your day-to-day existence? That's really the power. And some of the great ones out there, like the toad medicine. The toad's my personal favorite.
5-MeO?
Oh yeah, the toad is my favorite. It's just every time you're just like, whoa, geez, I'm really going to do this again. And then you get rocketed out of your body. And in 2015, somewhere around there, I did a 100 milligram dose of the toad. And I'd done toad many times in my life. I've probably done toad 50 times. But this particular time was 100 milligram dose, not a 40 or 30 or 20 or 10. And I got all the way to God. I got all the way to the source. And at that, my life changed at that moment. And I was in a place I didn't need to integrate anything. It was already integrated. I came back and I was just a different person, because at that point, you're connected to the source forever. That's a grace on your soul. That's like I was like, hallelujah, thank God, hallelujah, praise the Lord. And I've always felt that about that particular experience, that was the one time I actually didn't need to integrate it.
I hear you talk about all this stuff, and it feels so natural to us in the room. And we're at this expo where everyone takes awareness as the way of the future, but I don't know. It's easy to forget that outside this room, all of this is still kind of controversial, right?
Psychedelics and toad and things of that nature, and magical mushrooms, which are really medicinal mushrooms, and all of those things, peyote and wachuma, they're not for everybody. And you have to be of a certain mental groundedness, I think, to even do those things. And so it's not appropriate for everybody. So I get that caution, and that's an important cautionary piece of it. And I also get that it is scary. I'm still scared right before I do the toad. I'm freaked out. I know what's coming. I know how intense it's going to be. And so there's never a moment where you don't come to it with reverence. And so I think those cautions are intrinsic to the substance. There's something that tells you, like, hey, are you in the right place? Are you ready to do this? And a lot of people aren't. So they're like, that's not for me, or they'll run off, or that's okay.
Don't you think it's a miracle that these are like Easter eggs in a video game we're in, that you've ibogaine and ayahuasca and psilocybin and toads? It's like, if it's just weird that they're there.
I totally think that. That's totally.
It's like an Easter egg in a game. Like, you've got to go find that. You've got, how many non-toads did you have to, lick before?
Before you get to the real one. We call it actual reality, AR. And actual reality is a lot better than VR or video games or virtual. So in AR, it's just, to me, it's proof that we're in some kind of a simulation of some sort. And then the content of what's in the psychedelic experience is also very emotional, which is also telling us that a lot of what's happening with psychedelics is about our emotional well-being. And a lot of our emotional and spiritual well-being is at the core of our crisis, if we think about it, like in our world. So, I'm all for them being out there, and I'm all for them being used, and I'm all for them being the focus of much more interest, for sure. And it's not for everybody, for sure, I would say.
So you're talking about being connected to the sacred again. So I don't know if we were when religion was a bigger thing or not. I'm not going to say that. I think we just went to church and that was our life. But what would you say to the average person out there that, that's who we're interested in reaching? The plumber who kind of, does pretty well, but, things aren't great. Or, what would you say to a regular person to start exploring? What would be a good first step? And you don't have to, and not necessarily psychedelic, breath, whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Well, I always felt that you got to go at what is doable for you. So the worst medicine is something that's great, but you're never going to do it. So you have to go with where the easy road is for you, because life is actually like that. It's like you got to find the path of least resistance. Diet is a really good strategy for getting your health and well-being and vibration up. If you're on the wrong stuff or toxic food or candy or things like that, your vibe's going to be disturbed by it. Same is true with like what's in your feed. Right? If television's in your feed or social media is just getting you down, you need to change that diet of social media, get that out of your reality. Water's a big one, huge. I'm a spring water hunter. I've hunted 400 springs on 5 continents. I've hunted springs all over the world. It's an incredible thing. People are like, distilled water only. It's like, look, I'm into the energy of the earth. This is information coming out of the earth directly into me, unfiltered, just the way it is. That is such an experience, and it's high vibe. Like calibrating spring water's vibration, think about what it is. You've got a life-giving substance, the most life-giving substance, coming out of a rock or just coming out of the ground up in the mountain, and then flowing down, and the entire way down, it's just giving life. It's nourishing life. It's generating life. It is life. That vibe's big. So spring water's big. I could say the same about salts, actually. People are like, salt? What are you talking about? Just doing the salt switch, getting off the toxic, kiln-dried, all the trace mineral removed salts that are out there and getting back to like a real sea salt. Or I swam to a beach recently in Hawaii, and we were on a boat, and it's a private beach, but you can't actually own the beach in Hawaii, so anybody can swim to that beach. And I always saw this beach from the plane when we were landing. So I was like, this is the day. Okay. So we swam, it was like a 1,000-foot swim.
Which island?
This is Kauai.
Oh, okay.
If you're flying into Kauai and you look out the left side of the aircraft, you'll see there's a mountain right there, and it's kind of the drier side, and there's 2 beautiful beaches right there. So we finally swam there, and we're on the beach, and we're running around there, and there was salts on the rocks, because as the tides recede, that will evaporate and leave salts, and we're just eating those salts, and it was so good. It was such a vibe. That was amazing. That's right. It's all about the vibe, and we just want to get that vibe up. So if something's bringing your vibe down, here's another one, relationships. That's a huge one. If something's bringing your vibe down, turn that toxic relationship off, go somewhere else. Big one, huge in our world. What else can we say? There's so many different things. Just indoor versus outdoor. I always recommend you got to measure 1 hour outdoor with no phone, no anything. No, you're not taking pictures. You're just going out into nature like, imagine you're a caveman, and get into that vibration, because the constant screens and EMF, at some point you got turned off. Go out into nature, go be with the trees, go hug a tree, go walk in the sand, something for 1 measured hour a day. That's big on my list for raising the vibe.
Well, grounding, things like that. It's like when you become aware of it, it's like, oh, okay, wow, what a difference it is. Big difference. Sleep at night better and everything, and it's like all these things that we used to do when we were kids, are there. So, people are doing that. So what brings you to this conference? What's special about this one? I just like the people running this conference, and it's always fun. So you got good people running it. You've got good times to be had, and and every year they're like,
you want to come do our show? And I'm like, yeah, let's go back and do it again. And plus it's like right in the middle of, this is kind of like the center of the world. Like what's happening in Los Angeles it affects the whole world. And we've got to be bringing the high vibe in here because the other forces are trying to do their thing too.
So I come from a marketing background, and 40 years ago, exercise was something you did in a dark room. Like, nobody bragged about exercising. They just did it, Jack LaLanne or whoever, in a dark room. And now people are wearing, look at me, I got the 3 stripes. I work out and there's gyms everywhere. And even though people have found it, people still, exercise is a badge of honor. I actually think mental health, mental wellness will take that trend, that it's something that you don't talk about to something that you do talk about. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny if you're, I was in Costa Rica and, we're on a retreat and we're all talking about, all the amazing things in the universe. And then you come across somebody that isn't on that vibration. It's like, oh, okay. It's like a cliff. You're like, you lose energy when you're around that stuff. But I think this vibration of people wanting to emote that it's a big thing is an exciting time. I mean, that hey, I'm going to a sound bath, or I'm doing this, and my friends.
There's never been more interest in natural living and natural healing than there is now, and it's growing. And also being just open about what's going on for you, about your mental wellness is a very big topic. And we're in a mental health crisis, if we're really honest. And so I think more and more people are like, I need help. Like, what can I do? And there's so many great tools. And that's also a great part of about what's happening at the Conscious Life Expo is there's so many tools here, so many interesting people, interesting perspectives. I sat down with a guy last night and he was talking about, he gave me a copy of his play that he wrote about reincarnation. And I was just like, imagine, like my personal belief from all my research is that reincarnation's absolutely happening and real. And that's based on the scientific research of Ian Stevenson, Dr. Brian Weiss, Max Tucker, who was Stevenson's student. Paul Pearsall wrote a great book on it. Of course, Rudolf Steiner's great research on reincarnation, my own experiences, all of that stuff. It's once you settle into that, then you go, oh, total obliteration was a deception. Something lives on and comes back. And it's usually in those kids age 2 to 6 that they remember those things. And every parent has that experience of like a kid saying something, and they're like, what? How'd you know that? What, say more? That kind of thing.
In India, this stuff isn't like a sacred thing. It's just part of life. Like fasting is part of life. Breathing, all these different mantras. I mean, it's just part of life. So we would do deals over there, and you'd have a poet, an astrologer, a guru, literally in the room, and if they blessed it, they did it, and often it turned into incredibly successful things. So it's just funny how in other parts of the world it's just part of life. It's not like we're being spiritual now.
It's Western karmas.
And I didn't see anybody doing any intense yoga posing either. It was like nobody's curled up like a pretzel over in India. I didn't see. They're just maybe doing some breath work and something a little tricky, but nothing. It's not competitive.
It's not the yoga Olympics. I call it over here it's the yoga Olympics. Like you're going to a class like, like as fast as you can go. It's just like, what's happening here? Like, what is this? And so I had to kind of stop doing the yoga Olympics because it just was like, this isn't a sport where we're trying to do 50 poses in 10 minutes. Like, let's just do one pose for 10 minutes or something. And there's still great teachers who do that, like Dharma Mitra in New York. He's my favorite. He still does that style of yoga, old school, India style. But it's interesting, right? Because these are all Western karmas, right? We're Westerners, so we're playing out all these Western karmas, which are very different than Eastern karmas. And therefore, we have to learn our lessons about materialism, and we have to learn our lessons about escapism and all the things that are so extreme in the West. And people come, they get through the alcoholism or they get through the materialism, and then they end up at a place like this, and then they see all the, the fun we're having. I'm like, I know you own a mansion and a yacht, but I wouldn't want to have your life. No way. I kind of look out there and see that a lot of times, and I just pretty much, I feel most fulfilled when I'm just kind of in nature alone typically, or just working in my house alone and just have access to the orchard and just can do that, without any interference. And I just couldn't imagine these Western karmas of like, let's have more mansions or more yachts, or let's have a Lamborghini, or what's that going to do? What is that? I don't know. I don't get what that does for people.
Well, I think we just experienced, was it billions of dollars of wealth being lost?
Yeah.
And lots of my friends have had that. And,
tens of billions, maybe 500 billion in damage. Crazy.
And, some of my friends that live in that area, my kids both grew up in that area. We grew up near there. And friends of mine just put the finishing touches to his, like $20 million house and gone. And I think it's a cleansing. I hate to be honest. It's kind of a strange,
It's a cleansing and a wake-up call.
I don't want to say that, but it just lost their house.
It's so sad. It's just because you put so much energy, and I would never want to have that happen to my house, and I feel so bad for anybody who had that happen to all their belongings in their house. But if it does happen to you, it's a cleansing, and you have to let go. Because you're forced into a decision. Am I going to hold, or am I going to release? And there is a great cleansing in release, right? There's a great relief that can happen just by letting it all go and just moving on. And I had a friend, there's been numerous fires, as you know, in Los Angeles over the last 15 years. And I had a friend who lost everything. And he just was like, I just felt relieved that it was all, finally all gone. I could just start over. And it's never comfortable, but in a lot of ways, it's probably healthier. In the way that we review someone's health, when you walk into someone's house, you can see by the way they spatially arrange their house, if they're a hoarder, they're constipated. You can see what's happening inside their body by looking at what's happening outside. And so just have all that gone, it's tough, but we're not taking anything with us anyway. So it's kind of a new life, and it's a new start.
I got to say, I love that you're talking about simplifying your diet, and not just what you eat, but what you're consuming media-wise, your relationships, your belongings, this kind of cleansing mentality. Do you feel like we as human beings have a tendency to overcomplicate things?
Yes. Okay, so the question is about overcomplicating. And so what that really looks like to me, my perspective, and this is, I work with a really amazing psychic healer, and it's his perspective, and I see it because I'm always over his house while he's working on people. Everyone's all up in their head. They're thinking way too much. They're overcomplicating things. They're thinking things too much, and it's just, you can't believe what a catastrophe that's causing. It's like, bring it down in your heart. Bring it down in your heart. Just get it out of here. Bring it into here. Stop this thing up here, this monkey mind. Bring it down in here. Now, what I do, to neutralize that in myself is fasting. And I do 4 fasts every year. I used to do 1 week long fasts 4 times a year. Now I do 2 week long fasts 4 times a year. Today's day 8 of a water fast for me. And I just worked it into my life, and it's hard. But it gets you out of your mind. You cannot be in your mind. There's no way. You'll fail. You'll start going, well, I could just have a little something, or maybe I could just get away with this or that. You have to completely drop all of that. So as a student of all the Les Browns and the Tony Robbins and the Earl Nightingales and the Napoleon Hills and all those people, Jim Rohns, ultimately what came down to is the biggest challenge for me is actually this. It's fasting. And fasting and just doing your normal life, because you cannot stay in this monkey mind. If you do, you're going to get wrecked. And also, it's that transcendental meditation teaching that says you watch the mind. So I can watch my mind, trying to talk me out of it and trying to say, oh, we'll just do this. Well, we'll just change the plan. Oh, well, maybe we'll just do 8 days. Oh, we'll just do it at 7 days. Oh, we'll just, I watch it and I go, look at that. Look what's happening. So it becomes real. It's no longer just an idea in your head of like your monkey mind, your real self watching your monkey mind. It becomes real. And so that, to me, the greatest challenge in the world is fasting. It is, the day I had yesterday was so difficult, my God, because I had a very powerful autoimmune reaction coming through. I've been in the jungle for a month. Right. I haven't even been around people, anything. I've been with my cacao trees and, running up into the jungle and just having the best time ever. And then suddenly I'm in airplanes and controlled air environments and airports. And I had a super intense autoimmune reaction. And so I had to drink salt water until I neutralized it. So when I fast, by the way, I fast on water and salt, sometimes lemon and sometimes charcoal, and that's it. And so I had to really bring it down, but now I'm good. And so I got through it. So that challenge, that roller coaster, that's where, to me, that's where the action is. That's where it is. It's like many times I was like, just eat something. And I'm watching my mind going, not going to do it. And that wow, that's something. Anyway, maybe we get into that in the conversation.
So you're in the middle of it right now? Your energy level is unreal.
That's because, see, if I'm fasting, then I know I'm on. That's another reason why I do it before an event, because I know I'll be on. And so people ask me, like, why are you doing it? It's because normally I've done thousands of events, speaking events in my life. So normally the first one or two or three, like this morning's interview, I was a little bit, it's just been a while. So now I'm on. Now I'm on. It took a half hour, an hour, whatever. It took a minute, but no, it could have taken, if I wasn't fasting, it might have taken 2 or 3 days. I don't have 2 or 3 days to warm up. The event this weekend would be over. But with the fasting, I'll be on quick. And that's why I do it.
So I know it's easy to get into the nitty-gritty of it all, but we're putting this out into the world for people that may not even know who you are. So I'm curious, what would you say your message is? And why is it relevant today?
Okay, well, my name is David Avocado Wolfe, and my health message is about mental, spiritual, and emotional health, and about all the incredible tools that we have to achieve all of that, and the incredible gift that we've been given by our Creator to create in the world and to make the world a better place. And it starts with children and works its way all the way up into the elderly. So I actually really like working with children and the elderly the most. They're the most fun, and they actually listen the best, and they get the ideas that I'm presenting the best, which are very simple. Like, what food should we eat? Well, what do you want to do? Okay, let's say somebody's elderly, okay, and they have cardiovascular problems. It's going to be red foods all day long, because red foods improve cardiovascular and heart health. Let's say it's a child and we want to increase their creativity. Okay, let's get something really fun. We'll get some phycocyanin or something, like the blue pigments from blue-green algae, and we'll put it into a glass of coconut water, and we'll get a blue drink for them, and let's have them drink that, and they'll get all excited about that. But it will actually help them activate their imagination. So, it depends on the audience and what's happening, but that's the kind of fun that I have with the health world. The health world is easy. It's simple. Everybody knows you have to have great food. You have to be exercising. You need to be out in the sun. You need to be walking on the beach. We all know those basics. And so I just like to embellish that with some of the more fun insights that I've taken in over my life.
So I'm imagining this vision you mentioned you had, and I'm imagining, let's say you were an identical twin, and you had one of you decided to go one way and one of you was here, and you met that person that pursued where you were going if you hadn't have listened. So you talk a little bit about that moment when because that's a pivotal moment. I mean,
it's a pivotal moment. It happened in August of 1994, and that's when I had a vision of what to do with my life. And if I haven't gone this way, I would have probably become a very unhappy patent lawyer who would have been working in the tech field. And thank God that didn't happen. But when that vision happened, I really didn't have a choice. I knew that was my path, and I knew that it started right then, and I knew that it would work out. So I just had that confidence. And there's something about the confidence within yourself in what you're doing that carries across, and that allows the information to flow, so that the right things just showed up for me, and the right information came. I would do events and somebody would tell me something. I'd do another event, somebody would tell me another piece of that puzzle. Another piece would come the next event. And then the fourth event or fifth event, somebody would give me another piece of information and would fill in the gaps. And it was like, wow, it would all assemble itself. And I just always felt like that is more like a simulation theory of our reality than this very materialistic Ahrimanic theory of our reality, which just doesn't make sense.
Well, it seems our culture is you achieve something and then you can reap the rewards. You can't reap them on the way. It's like you have to get to a certain level, and then whether it's retirement or a certain amount of money in the bank or whatever it is. But it's, as you say, kids are out there having a blast. They don't have 401ks and.
Yeah, that was a terrible program. That idea that you're supposed to be achieving to be happy. You have to be happily achieving it. Otherwise, it's not going to work out later, right? If you get all the money or whatever and you never were happy, you're not going to suddenly be happy because suddenly you've retired. So happily achieving means you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and what you love. And so getting people onto what they love is also a very important part of health, actually, because many people are trying to escape their lifestyle, escape their work. They're just grinding through it. And instead of grinding, let's ground.
Let's talk a little bit about spirituality. That was something you talked about. What is that? It's such a I'm a spiritual person. I mean, it's like, what is that? Let's break down what that means.
Well, I think it's the way you orient your life. Like I orient my life to the things that are unseen, that forces that are unseen, benevolent forces that surround us, the angels that surround us, forces that are not ahrimanic. They are not materialistically provable. Forces that this whole creation of our reality. I mean, everything in this room here was created by people. So you're telling me plants and trees and animals and mushrooms weren't created by something? There has to be an intelligence behind it all. And the intelligence of life, to me, is that intelligence it's unknowable in that sense. It's so complex, it's so deep, it's so vast, that was what we call God. And when you align with yourself with those forces, you feel better. You feel more supported. You feel that connection with the sacred, the thing that's been lost. And so that's spirituality to me. People can find it in nature. I think that's a tool, a very strong tool to find it. People can find it in just their own soul searching because they're lost and just don't know where to go, and suddenly a vision appears before them, or Jesus appears in their inner vision, or something like that happens to them. There's many ways there, but I think that the natural path is probably the most accessible of all of them, because just anybody who contemplates, there cannot be a lie sustained in nature, right? Nothing. You can, once you have wild nature, it's for real. It's actual reality. And being out in real nature, you're like, wow, what are the forces that built these mountains? What are the forces that construct a tree? And how does a tree metaphorically? Our tree is metaphorically like us, and we're like a mountain. And when I think about that cycle, I think about our alveoli, when our inner gases meet the outer gases. Our inner waters actually meet the outer gases. And like in the earth, that's a spring, right? The alveoli is like a spring, like the inner waters meet the outer gases. And in a tree, it's a stomata. The inner waters meet the outer gases. They're all metaphorically aligned. And random? That's not random. No. And also just the psychedelic experience and all the beings that inhabit those psychedelic places or worlds or dimensions. How do you explain all them? You can't materialistically explain all them. We're in some kind of an incredible video game.
So you look at a tree, capillary action brings the water up into a tree. Like, that's kind of
up to a certain point.
It's a convenient thing, though.
Yeah, up to 12 feet, but the capillary action doesn't explain how it gets up 200 feet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, so I got into that. That's a good one to look up, and there's some good videos on it. You have to create through the stomata, in let's just say a redwood tree. Let's say a redwood tree is 200 feet tall. You actually have to create enough of a pull, like a suction. It's like 15 or 16 atmospheres. So you basically have that's what's happening to get that sap all the way up to those little needles. Those needles are pretty small. And it's just incredible that a tree can create those kind of forces, suctional forces, that's moving that sap around.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's a cool rabbit hole, because so when I was a kid in 7th grade, our teacher asked us to create a free energy device. And so my free energy device was a capillary action machine.
Oh, okay.
So I got into capillary action at that time. And so the idea is that you have so you have all these straws that drop into a pool of water, and through capillary action, the water will be raised up into those straws. But there's halfway up those straws, let's say they're raised up 2 feet. And at 1 foot, we have a little action where then it comes up through another tray. So it's sealed there, each straw. And it goes, as soon as the water goes up to the top of the straw straw goes, and it has a little valve that opens, and all the water releases into the tray above. Okay, and then you just spill that water over a water wheel down to the tray 1. Idea. That was my idea.
That's a good idea.
I haven't improved on that yet.
That would work. Given enough straws.
Yeah.
Why 12 feet, though? Why 12 feet?
It's the nature of capillary action. It just cannot generate enough force to raise it up higher, and it has to do with atmospheric forces and pressures.
Width of the straw or anything?
Width of the straw matters. The smaller that the straw diameter is, the higher it will go. But there is a limit. So this has been a big thing, because there's this idea of what you said. And it's our presumption that capillary action raises the water all the way, but it's not true. It's actually, the tree has to create a suctional force above to pull it up, draw it up, which then brings to mind also another very interesting piece of research is the whole Victor Schauberger idea that all of life depends on this balance between push and pull, or suction and friction, right? So what Victor Schauberger says, and I agree with, is that the suctional forces have to be greater. Otherwise, you can have entropy, because when you're pushing too much in friction, eventually you're going to create heat and inflammation. And so always these suctional forces are more important. So when it comes to the real rudiments of health, what happens as we age is the debris starts clogging up all these suctional systems in our body, and then eventually we get choked out. Like something happens, there's a disturbance in the joint or whatever, and start developing arthritis from blocks or debris or obstructions in that suctional and frictional environment. If there's too much friction, inflammation.
It is kind of amazing that science, as we look at science and equations and numbers, it can explain some of the world, a lot of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at like a sinusoidal pattern, whether it's friction, suction, friction, whatever it is, that's kind of the core of mathematics is that curve, which is sound frequencies everywhere.
You're onto something that really fascinates me, which has never been answered by anybody, which is why everything is a pulsation. No. What, like the psychedelic experience comes in a pulsation. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, it's hitting. But then after like 20 minutes, it kind of eases off. And then all of a sudden it comes back again. And
I mean, everything, a wheel, a breathing. It's just all the planets orbiting, and all these. It's like everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And you're like, but why would numbers, digits, and they're to 10 because we have 10 fingers? That's the only reason that explains things. I don't see how those two worlds. Like, how would numbers and an abstract thing like that explain the orbits of planets? It's just so random that those two things work together.
Yeah, well, yeah. When I look at it, I consider all the numbers, and I think also the irrational numbers. That's a really interesting one, because to my mind, I'm Fortean, so I'm a student of Charles Fort. Charles Fort and I share the same birthday. If you've ever read the Book of the Damned, New Lands, Wild Talents, and Lo, those were his 4 great books. And one of his things that he gets into is that there's always like an X factor built into everything. There's always something that's just unexplainable. So you have like the let's say the push and the pull, and then there's an X factor, just some other random thing that comes in. So that's kind of like the irrational number. Like why pi, why phi, why is that in there? Now, my personal belief on it, having looked at it over the years, is that it's the irrationality that brings the energy in. It's more of a feminine force, actually, that brings like a brand new baby. You can't tell me that entropy runs everything. There's a brand new baby. There's a brand new puppy. What are you talking about? This is brand new life. That's entropy, meaning the forces of entropy have been pushed out. Why? How did they get in here? What's happening? And to me, I go, okay, that's like the irrational number. That's that bleeds energy in here. It feeds this realm.
But that number's a constant in many different places, which is also kind of weird.
Yeah.
That is the Indians pride themselves on coming up with 0, because actually, like, nobody thought of that. And that's something I think about. Like gravity, we just assume when you drop something, it falls to the floor. Like, but somebody goes, why does it do that? Or somebody looks at a plane and it takes off, or somebody discovered that air actually is a thing. It's like these. I'm wondering what we're missing now.
Oh, good question.
What are we missing now that we're like, oh my God, how did we not notice that?
Oh, you hit it. I mean,
what is it? I think it's space travel. I think we're going to come up with something that's like, oh, here's how we need to do that.
It's all right
maybe
here.
Maybe do the Rocky Horror Show, the hip to the left and
hip to the right and
pelvic thrust. Anyway, but go on.
Yes, you're onto a really cool meditation, which is what is right around us right now that we're missing. I love that you said that. I've been on that for a lot of years of like, what is so obvious? What's so in my face that I don't see it? What are my assumptions about what's around me right now that I'm just not paying attention to it?
Well, your infinity machine, your machine you talked about is actually, I'm going to patent that, Sean. Let's get that patent there.
That's a good one, right? Capillary action
machine. I'm trying to think why that wouldn't work, and it kind of would.
Yeah, it would work. Yeah, let's just say you had them all of metal, right? And so they would go like, they just go at the top, right? And then it opens, and then it goes back down. Let's say you have a certain, like it's like a plumbing system, right? Yeah, as soon as the float goes up at the top tray, it causes everything to or whatever, something like that. And then the water flows down over a water wheel and starts over again. That whole thing, I just love that idea. That's been with me, since 7th grade. I had a really good 7th grade teacher, an 8th grade teacher, a 9th grade teacher. We had the same kind of teachers through those classes, through those years.
In Hawaii or on the East Coast?
This was in California.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I came to California in 1980, I went to Bell Junior High School down in San Diego, and we had Mr. Borntrager, Mr. Borden. Those are the two key ones. There was other ones, but those were the two ones who really got us thinking differently and creatively. And I really, really honor and appreciate them for that. I mean, wow. And that was public school. A lot of people went to private school, got a good education. I actually got a good education in public schools, which is amazing. I'm appreciative of that too.
You said you were going to be a patent lawyer. You should have patented your
machine.
It could have been that. So yeah, what are we missing? I don't know. I mean, I think it may be. I asked somebody, what travels faster than the speed of light, and they said consciousness. I thought that was
good answer.
Our consciousness is like.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it was the kind of person that would give that kind of good answer. This person also said something to me that I cannot shake. And we were talking about AI and whatever, and they said, well, that's just silicon becoming conscious.
Mm-hmm. Bringing silicon consciousness.
And that's something that is terrifying and amazing at the same time, because carbon is conscious, or can be. And so the rise of silicon being, and most of the universe is made up of silicon.
Yeah, our Earth is like 20% of the Earth's crust is silicon. That's crazy, right? And you think about okay, so we're tying human consciousness back to the mineral world. Now, Rudolf Steiner would say that's very Ahrimanic. We're trying the human consciousness to the mineral world, when really what we're trying to do is we're just trying to inscend, right? We're trying to bring it actually all to the heart. This is actually pulling us closer to the earth. That's the negative side. But the positive side is really amazing, and that is there's nothing hidden anymore. Nothing can be hidden. So all truths will be told. And that's what personal belief I've had for a long time, that it's all going to come out. Everything will come out. Every secret they tried to keep is all going to come out. We're going to find out everything about everybody. We're going to find out what this politician's been doing, what that actor's been doing, what this person's been doing, that person's been doing, and everybody's going to have a real wake-up call. And that's good. That's a good thing. And I think it's part of growing up, right? It's part of realizing, okay, this is life on Earth.
Do you think humanity and this planet is currently undergoing a frequency shift?
I spent a lot of years trying to figure out where we are in the yugas. Is this the Kali Yuga? Because there's certainly a lot of darkness, but then there's certainly a lot of light. The light's increasing for sure, because we can see just the truth telling that's going on is crazy. Like the uncovering of what the US government, for example, has been up to and how they fund both sides of every war and all this stuff. It's increasing. More and more people are finding out. And this is happening at an incredible pace. So this led me to this realization. So Rudolf Steiner, Sri Yukteswar, who was one of Yogananda's teachers, and the Theosophists, they all said that the Kali Yuga, which is typically in the parlance I'm referencing, the Kali Yuga is the age of darkness. And the Yuga means an age, and Kali is like, Kali, going to take your head off, right? The demon.
My favorite, by the way.
Kali is your favorite of the Vedic deities. And so the Kali Yuga is a 6,000-year period, and let's just say, I think it's called a Satya Yuga, or like a golden age, is like a 24,000-year period. So the Kali Yuga is much shorter, but much more intense, and especially at the end of it. So it ended 1899. So what we're seeing, and if you look at 1899, remember the materialism, it was all like the Darwinism, right? It's all random mutation. There's no way random mutation is creating everything that's going on, and that's never been proven, and there's many problems with Darwinism. And there always has to be intelligence behind everything. Even, what was his name, Dawkins, he even said intelligent genes. It's like, okay, so you're admitting intelligence, but you're just moving it from over here, and now you're saying it's over here. That's just how they do it. Anyway, what's happening from 1899 on is the great reveal. The wizard is back there behind the curtain. Toto pulls the curtain open, and now we're all going, what the heck's been going on over here? And that's the very first step. And we're 126 years into the Satya Yuga, or the Golden Age. This is a 24,000-year cycle. So the first step is the reveal, then it's community building, and then we build up from there. So where this is going is great, and our freedoms and all of the things that will be possible for us in the future will grow. In some places they'll be diminished for a minute, but it's not going to last. Look what happened to the Eastern Bloc. It's just not going to last. You just can't crush the human spirit. And no matter how much you scheme or whatever you're up to at the very top of like, let's steal this, let's rip these people off, let's hide this, let's see if we can scam this. Eventually people find out and it doesn't last long. And it's lasting actually shorter and shorter and shorter. Hence the meme that's going around like, what's the difference between reality and a conspiracy theory? It used to be like, decades, it used to be centuries, it used to be 1,000 years. Now it's like 6 months. I bet you it's going to be soon 6 weeks, and soon it's going to be 6 hours.
The conspiracy theories are actually more believable than reality these days.
Totally.
It's like, you got the richest guy in the world running the country. Like, if somebody said, the richest guy in the world, guy is running the country, like, no way is that happening.
That could never happen.
We're like seeing it.
It's happening.
We're like the richest guy. It's not like the second richest or the 10th richest. Because they always say
it's science fiction.
They always
right?
say the Rothschilds controlled it. It's like, no, right in front of our eyes, we're seeing all those things. So how does that work with the Piscean age and the age of Aquarius? I mean, or is that a different scale? Or is
many people. Okay, so there's the Hamlet's Mill, I think, was the great book written on the precession of the equinoxes, right? That over great periods of time, gradually the equinox moves, or the precession of the zodiac moves and progresses us so that in the springtime, I guess, is when the Aquarius is showing up, something like that. Anyway, so those are 2,000-year periods, right? Each zodiac sign is a 2,000-year process, and the precession is a 24,000-year process to move us through the different zodiac, right? The rising of the sun shows up as Pisces, then it shows up as Aquarius, then it shows up as Aries, then it shows up as Taurus, that kind of thing. And it's been progressing backwards, right? Because we moved out of, let me see if I can remember this. Yeah, the next one will be Aries after Aquarius, and then it will move to Taurus. And before that was Capricorn, so it's Capricorn, Pisces, Aquarius, etc. What does that all mean? It means that there's just a different, to me, I would just say the different soul groups are incarnating here. And that's what most of the Theosophists said, that's what Steiner said, that's what Sri Yukteswar said, is that basically what it means for a golden age to be coming in is new souls are coming in that don't have the values of the old souls. That's why you saw, starting in 1900, the hippies, and it started like, there was Germans who were like, well, forget this business. We're going to America. We're going to live in California off the fruit, off the, paradisical Mediterranean climate. And that's what they did. They came over here. And you see this happening all over the world where people just don't have the values that their predecessors had. And I think this is what saves the world, actually, is like people just, and you see it with this generation today. They're like, yeah, I don't care. Like the aliens are coming. Yeah, so what? They don't care. And that's rad. I think I'm really actually very hopeful for this next generation. Geez, it's going to be good because they just are not caught up in the BS.
Yeah. I was with this person talking about the post-capitalist collapse, not as a negative thing. And this is actually down in Costa Rica, and where they're growing our food out of our poop and everything. Your poop is the next guest's food and like the giant centipede kind of thing. And what's your thought on that? Because it's we call it post-capitalist collapse as if the tall buildings are all going to fall down or something, but that system has got to where it is now. How do you see the future? How do you see the future of that?
Well, I see the institutions of old they're rotted out. They're rotted out because the love's gone out. Right? So what builds the institutions originally is the love. What built the great universities of the world is the love. Now it's just become indoctrination. So they'll collapse because of that, right? So you can't keep propping up the skeletons if the love's not there. So the love moves somewhere else. Right now, the love is moving towards regenerative farming. The love is moving towards sustainability. The love is moving towards community. The love is moving towards being in awe and wonder of Mother Nature. The love is moving towards the magic of all the tools we have at our disposal, like all the psychedelic tools and all the physical tools and all the cool little gadgets for our healing and our awareness, improve our awareness. The love is moved towards, let's get reconnected to the sacred instead of the made in China, made in Indonesia, made wherever, made in Taiwan. Nobody wants that anymore. So that's what's happening. And then if we have to default back to the technology just for fun, oh, let's see what's happening over in Taiwan or in Indonesia and China, then we can go, okay, here's this. Okay, let's get back to the farm now. That's where it's going. And that's what I see people are going to be more and more doing, right? Like they're going to be looking at their grandma's house that they've now inherited and be like, let's start growing stuff here. Let's plant some trees. Let's see if we can make this an actual bastion of freedom here in the middle of this suburb. Those are the people I'm hanging out with. That's what I'm seeing.
No, I mean, how do we popularize that? How do we socialize that? Because you tell somebody doing that, it's like, oh, what do we work? You know, you don't get a regular job, you know.
The answer is we call it the meme war. It's called the meme war. Is everybody, what they're really ingesting these days is memes and short videos. It's the meme war. So we realized this actually in December of 2014. That's when I really got aware of that. And so we just started to just disseminate it, just put it out there in the field, just keep going, just put it out there in the field. And slowly there's been a change in the zeitgeist. It's not because of us, it's because people already intrinsically have that in their soul. They were incarnated that way. They have a different value system than their predecessors. And so they see that and it resonates and they realize there's other crazy people out there like them. Yeah. There's other black sheep. And so they find a unity and they find also that they're not crazy and that hey, okay, I'm going to do it. And I've seen so many cool suburban houses that were like, you know, you walk to one house, it's like perfectly mowed lawn, everything, you know, looks like Leave It to Beaver. The next house overflowing of every kind of fruit that can be grown there, tomatoes in the front yard, this and that. Looks like a jungle, then back to Leave It to Beaver style, grass and stuff. And it's just epic.
So we started out asking what you think people are searching for in the world. So I wanted to ask, what are you searching for?
Great. What I'm searching for is a deeper control of myself. And that's where the fasting comes in. So to come to the events and to do the normal light living and stuff and just be in the water fast it's challenging. And some days this day's been easy so far. This has been a good one. Oh, what a relief. This has been the easiest day so far. And so that inner battle that's the crux of the action. And to have a victory internally is worth millions of victories externally.
Say control. I mean, is that the goal?
Self-control.
What does that get you though?
It's a deeper connection to your creator. It's mind over matter. It's spirit over matter. So you're able to push away the impulses, the materialistic impulses of our world. It's kind of the animal impulses, maybe is a way of saying it, and get to, you know, more of the soul impulses and the spirit impulses. And basically what really helps a lot, as strange as it may sound, is fasting and prayer, fasting and prayer, fasting and prayer, fasting and prayer. What a combination. Oh. Whoa. And then also from a real logical perspective, it directs your attention to the prayer. God, please forgive me. I forgive you. Let's forgive ourselves. Please, thank you. Have everyone forgive me. I forgive everyone. Let's forgive ourselves. Please, thank you. It directs your attention so you're not off thinking about something else.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Right on. Thank you.
For bringing it in, brother.
Thank you so much.
To watch more than 60 hours of wellness content that dives into these topics, go to joinelixir.com.